You're about to look at what's going to be a big nationally developing story and what I believe is going to be a linchpin in the entire Trump agenda. Mass deportations were probably his most forerunning campaign promise. And now, less than 2 months in, and we're already in trouble. This is the first instance of them making a catastrophic mistake in the process of carrying out their agenda. And at the very end, we're going to look at the blowback from this, how the Trump administration responded today. And let me just tell you, this is not good. This is like a dam breaking in the Trump admin. And combine that with the big loss of the Supreme Court in Wisconsin after Elon dumped $30 million and everything he had into that election, things are not looking good for Trump. This is where everything's about to come off the rails. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please drop that like, hit the sub button, turn those noties on. Let's get into it. This story is absolutely nuts. Now, legal citizen, guys. You ready? So the Trump administration knowingly, let's pay real attention to this word right here. Okay? The Trump administration knowingly deported a Maryland father with legal protection from removal, sending him to CECOT in El Salvador. It's 𝗙𝗪𝗪 Garcia. He came to the U.S. at 16 after fleeing gang death threats. In 2019, an immigration judge, this is during Trump's term, mind you, granted him withholding of removal, a legal status protecting him from deportation after finding he'd likely be persecuted if he was returned. He had no criminal record in the U.S., he was married to a U.S. citizen and a father of a 5-year-old disabled son. He regularly complied with ICE check-ins. So this guy has never tried to evade the law. He's never obscured his transparency. He has always been open and above board. ICE admitted that it knew that he had legal protection, but they put him on the deportation flight anyway. He was not on the manifest. They added him as an alternate. Now he is held in a prison for gang members, despite no charges, no verified gang affiliation whatsoever. And the government now argues that the U.S. courts can't order his return. His wife recognized him in a propaganda photo released by 𝗣𝗢𝗪 and with his head forced down Frog March by the guards. ICE calls it an administrative error, then says it was done in good faith. But the problem is here, guys, the problem here is there's so many problems here. But two of the main ones that I want to highlight are the fact that, one, they knew this guy had protected status. They knew it. They knew he was protected. They knew he was safe, and they fucking deported him anyway. They knew it, and they did it anyway. That's part one. But part two is the fact that there's no return on this shit, which means if they do make a mistake or if they purposely send somebody there, they have no control once they do it. So essentially, what they're doing is they have created a situation where they can deport people and then not have to deal with making mistakes. And that's super dangerous. That needs to be illegal. I think shipping people, human trafficking people to prison in a separate country is literally selling people to slavery. One of the big things that's at issue here is these people that they're saying are gang members, these people that they're shipping off to this third country, they're not required to present any evidence proving they're actually what they say they are. And that is the crux of this scenario here. Holman and his goons are picking people up. They're declaring them gang members or whatever, enemies of the state. And then they're trafficking them to El Salvador. And they're not required to present any fucking proof. It's outrageous. No due process. Zero due process.
The Trump administration just admitted in a Monday night court filing that they accidentally deported a man with protected legal status, someone who had been here for over a decade. He moved here as a teenager, now as a father.
Dude, he's married to a U.S. citizen. See, what I don't understand is why is this guy married to a U.S. citizen and not also a citizen?
They placed him on a plane and then sent him to a foreign prison where he is now in serious danger. But the worst part is, the Trump admin is arguing they can't do anything about it, which completely contradicts some of their previous arguments. In Monday's court filing, attorneys for the government admitted that the Salvadoran man, 𝗙𝗪𝗪 Garcia, was deported accidentally. Quote, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador, Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error, the government told the court. By administrative error, they mean they're rounding up every brown person in sight who vaguely has a cute rose tattoo on their wrist.
Yeah, again, they're rounding up everybody. Suspected gang members, gang affiliations, friends of gang members, any brown-skinned person, tattoos, any suspicion, but they don't have to prove any of it, though.
And then sending them to one of the most dangerous prisons in the world.
Suddenly, you're hit with the intense gaze of dozens locking onto you. These men described as the worst of the worst, tattooed with reminders of El Salvador's dark past. It's tense and uncomfortable. But here, officials say comfort isn't meant to exist.
There's no mattresses, there's no sheets. You've got a toilet over here for them to go to the bathroom. You've got this basin here that they use to bathe themselves. And then you can see there's a barrel of water that they can drink from.
This is a rare look inside El Salvador.
There's no mattresses, there's no sheets. They're just sleeping on metal, like they're living like fucking animals in a fucking pen.
Terrorism Confinement Center, known as CECOT.
And he says there's always somebody standing here in front of the cells, and then if you look up, there's another corridor with more security personnel. Luz 24 horas. 24/7 light. It's almost multiple prisons within the prison. You can see off to the distance, there's 3 different rings as they describe. The far end, you have one that's 9 meters high of concrete, and then above that, 3 meters of electrified fencing.
At 15,000 volts.
15,000 volts.
More than 1,000 security personnel, guards, police, and military are stationed on site. Inmates are assigned to one of 8 sectors.
The director tells me the inmates, once they're inside one of these sectors, they never leave. Everything is done within, including doctors, as well as legal visits or court hearings.
Each sector holds more than 24 large cells.
Roughly 80 inmates per cell, but it can fluctuate. We're going to close the door. I just want to get a sense of... Wow.
Solitary confinement awaits.
The only light you get is through this hole. And they can be in here for 15 days, potentially.
Dude.
All right, I'm ready to get out.
Dude, that's fucking brutal, dude.
The director brought up that a lot of folks will raise concerns from a human rights perspective and an abuse of human rights, that he's calm hearing that because he sees it day to day, the process they go through to maintain, as he sees it, proper punishment.
We should not be sending anyone from America to a foreign prison. Period. Another country's prison? If that person hasn't committed a crime in that country, why are we sending any human beings to prison in another country? That's number one. That's fucking slavery. That's human trafficking. Number 2, if the government says these guys are gang members, they get their fucking day in court before they get removed. That's the due process part. But even when they get removed, if you want to remove them to their country and deport them, that's one thing. But to take them to a different fucking country and put them in prison when they've committed no crime for merely being accused, you are accused of being a gang member and then you're sentenced to prison in a third-party country? Dude, that is some outrageous bullshit. Dude, they're like doing these videos. They're making content. It's like this very like police state sort of content. And this is outrageous because eventually it's not going to just be gang members. It is very strange. Like they have drones and shit filming these guys running these little patterns, making this huge production with their like armored cars and shit. And the US is basically selling people into slavery over there. I just don't like this whole vibe. This whole vibe is very dystopian. I mean, you wonder at what point, when is a government official going to end up at one of these things? The way they keep their heads down and shit, you know, the filming of this, it's so inhumane. All the guys have their faces covered like fucking terrorists, all the law enforcement. Shit is so grody. The case appears to be the first time the Trump admin has admitted to errors. Attorney for several Venezuelan deportees have said that the Trump administration falsely labeled their clients as gang members because of their tattoos. Again, no due process. But in Monday's court filing, the attorneys for the government admitted that they fucked up and they knew that this guy shouldn't have been deported. Garcia's attorney said he'd never seen a case in which the government knowingly deported someone who had already received protected legal status from an immigration judge. Yeah, this is not normal. We're paying $6 million to fucking jail those guys there. So this guy came here 14 years ago at the age of 16 after fleeing gang threats in his native El Salvador. In 2019, he received a form of protected legal status known as withholding of removal from an immigration judge who found he would be targeted by gangs if deported back. He's married to a U.S. citizen. Again, I don't understand why he's not a U.S. citizen if he married a U.S. citizen. But he is married to a U.S. citizen, has a 5-year-old kid. Now, the Trump administration does not claim he has a criminal record, but called him a danger to the community and an active member of MS-13. Sandoval Motionberg said those charges are false, and the gang label stems from a 2019 incident when Abrego Garcia and 3 other men were detained in a Home Depot parking lot by police detectives in Maryland. During questioning, one of the men told officers Abrego Garcia was a gang member, but the man offered no proof, and police say they didn't believe him. Police did not identify him as a gang member. Abrego Garcia was not charged with the crime, but he was handed over to Immigration and Customs Enforcement after the arrest to face deportation. In those proceedings, the government claimed that a reliable informant had identified him as a ranking member of MS-13. Abrego Garcia and his family hired an attorney, fought the government's attempt to deport him, and that's when he received the legal status. So this guy, they tried to label him a gang member. He had his due process. He proved it. He achieved legal status. They went after him again. Dude, this is crazy. It is not a path to permanent U.S. residency, but it means the government won't deport him because he's likely to face harm. He has had no contact with any law enforcement agency since his release. He works full-time as a union sheet metal apprentice. Motherfucker's got a union job, bro. He has complied with requirements to check in annually with ICE. He cares for his 5-year-old son who's autistic and has a hearing defect. On March 12th, he picked up his son after work from the boy's grandmother's house when ICE officers stopped the car saying his protected status had changed. Okay? So they fucking lied to him. So they knew who this guy was. They knew he had protected status. And then they rolled up on him and said, your status has changed. Dude, that's so devious. That is so dirty. Officers waited for Abrego Garcia's wife to come to the scene and take care of the boy. Then they drove him away in handcuffs. Garcia's family had no contact with him since he was sent to the mega prison in El Salvador. His wife spotted her husband in news photographs released by President Bukele on the morning of March 16th after a district judge had told the Trump administration to halt the flights. Oopsie. Bukele wrote on social media, taunting the judge. Yeah, they're all just laughing about this. Abrego Garcia's wife recognized her husband's decorative arm tattoo and scars. The image showed Salvadorian guards in black ski masks frog marching him into the prison with his head shoved down toward the floor. The CECOT is the same prison that Kristi Noem visited last week when she was standing in front of those guys with her nice $60,000 Rolex. If the government wants to deport someone, with protected status, the standard course would be to reopen the case, introduce new evidence arguing for deportation. The deportation of a protected status holder has even stunned some government attorneys I've been in touch with who are tracking the case who declined to be named because they weren't authorized to speak to the press. What the fuck? One texted me. So Jon Favreau from Crooked Media tagged some guys asking for comment about this innocent father from Maryland being sent to CECOT in El Salvador. And so JD Vance pops off and says, my comment is that according to the court document, you apparently didn't read he was a convicted MS-313 gang member with no legal right to be here. My further comment is that it's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. But again, dude, this guy was not a gang member. And in fact, when that guy in the Home Depot parking lot said he was a gang member and police investigated him and he went to court, he actually proved he wasn't a gang member, which was why he granted that legal status. Then ICE lies to him to say that his status had changed, which was a lie, and they ship him off. And JD Vance here is a fucking degenerate. Now, here's what I wonder, though, is will the reporters who interview JD Vance, will the mainstream media put his feet to the flame about this? Will they hold him responsible for this? For the fact that, again, they're lying. They don't even have criminals to deport. These lying motherfuckers, dude. Such degenerates. You can see by JD Vance's response that they are wholly unprepared for the gravity of this situation. Initially, JD Vance was tweeting, and he didn't even have the right administration. He was tweeting about 2019 as if it was under the Biden administration. These guys are scrambling. They are not ready for the fallout of this. Now, of course, today in Karoline Leavitt's press conference, she got asked a pretty pointed question about this situation. A reporter put the screws to her.
Everyone who's been involved in these operations is focused on eradicating these criminals and terrorists from our communities.
The Vice President said he was a convicted member of MS-13. What evidence is there to back that up?
There's a lot of evidence, and the Department of Homeland Security and ICE have that evidence, and I saw it this morning. Steve.
And so there we have it. The court filings and the court filing from 2019 show clearly that judges have seen evidence from this case and determined that this man was not a gang member. But Karoline Leavitt and the Trump admin want to just stonewall and say, well, we have evidence that says he is a gang member. But this comes down to the very point. It's about due process. The idea that if the Trump administration has evidence of this man being a dangerous gang member that deserves deportation, they should put that evidence before a judge, and the man should have his due process to be able to refute those charges, present his own evidence, and then a decision is made before anyone gets deported. Every person in the United States has the right to due process. You do not have to be a citizen. The Fifth Amendment guarantees it to everyone, not just citizens. And that is what this is about. It's not about gang members. It's not about crime. It's about all human beings in the United States having their right to due process. It's in the Constitution. And on top of that, though, deporting people to a third-party country and putting them in prison when they have committed no crime, that is unconscionable. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, you want to support independent resistance media, you know what to do. Drop that sub, hit the like button, and please share it. And we do love our members, so if you want to become a member, it's another really great way to support. Thanks again for everything, guys. I'll see you next time. Let's go.